As Maya sat on her bed flipping through the pages of her old diary, her roommate, Leah, suddenly walked in, carrying a dusty photo album. Without a word, Leah placed the album on Maya's lap and pointed to a picture. "Are you telling me you don't know him?" Leah asked, her voice trembling. Maya glanced at the photo, her eyes widening in shock. The man in the picture looked uncannily like her. The resemblance was undeniable. "I've never seen him before," Maya said slowly, though her mind raced with questions. Could Leah be telling the truth? Leah took the album and tucked it back into her suitcase. Without another word, she left the room, leaving Maya confused and lost in thought. Days turned into a week, and despite the initial tension, Maya and Leah started talking more. Their conversations were brief but pleasant, shared smiles in the hallways, sitting together in the dining hall. Slowly, a fragile bond began to form. Maya was curious about the man in the photo but decided not to press Leah for answers. It was clear Leah didn't want to talk about it, and Maya didn't want to risk the budding friendship they were building. One evening, Maya was startled to see Leah enter the room in tears. Without hesitation, she rushed to Leah's side, wrapping her arms around her as Leah sobbed uncontrollably. "My parents are getting divorced," Leah cried, her voice cracking. "I thought they'd work it out, but this time it's final." Maya held her close, offering silent comfort. With her guard down, Leah began to share more about her family, her father's repeated betrayals, and how her mother had endured it all. "I'm proud of my mom for staying strong," Leah said through her tears, "but it still hurts." Then, as if something clicked in her mind, Leah sat up and glared at Maya. "Maybe your mom planned all this," she snapped bitterly. "You and my dad, this was probably her idea from the start." Maya's chest tightened with anger. She wasn't about to let anyone insult her mother. "That's enough," Maya said firmly. "I'm sorry about what's happening with your parents, but don't you dare talk about my mom like that." A heavy silence filled the room before Leah's face softened. She reached out to Maya, her voice small and filled with regret. "I'm so sorry, Maya. I shouldn't have said that." Maya hesitated but eventually nodded. "It's okay. Just don't say something like that again." Leah managed a small smile. "You've got some fire in you, huh?" she teased. Maya couldn't help but smile back. "Maybe. But for the record, I have no interest in meeting your father, and I'm sure my mom doesn't either. Let's just drop it." Leah nodded, and the tension between them melted away. From that moment, their friendship grew stronger. As weeks passed, Maya became more accepted by the other girls in the school, thanks to Leah's popularity. However, one girl, Clara, continued to bully her. Maya never retaliated. She was there to study, not to pick fights. When the holidays approached, the girls began packing their luggage to head home. Just as Leah zipped up her suitcase, the matron entered the room. "Leah, your father is here to pick you up," the matron announced. Leah froze, shocked. Her father had never come to pick her up before. She knew this had to be about the divorce. Turning to Maya, Leah whispered, "I guess I'll finally get some answers." Mia's heart raced as she sat on the edge of her bed, processing the matron's announcement. Her mother had arrived, but so had someone else, the man from the picture Leah had shown her weeks ago. The idea of facing him, a man she suspected to be her father, made her palms sweat. "Are you sure you don't want to meet him?" Leah asked gently, noticing Mia's hesitation. Mia shook her head firmly. "No, I don't want to meet him. My mother is enough for me," she said confidently. Leah raised an eyebrow and coughed lightly, her voice tinged with playful sarcasm. "Only your mother?" Mia chuckled, softening her tone. "Okay, fine. My mother and my sister. They're all I need." The two girls hugged before Leah grabbed her bag and headed out to meet her father. Mia stayed behind, hoping the commotion outside would settle. An hour later, the matron returned to inform Mia that her mother had arrived. Excitement replaced her nerves, and she rushed to the waiting area. But as soon as she entered, Mia froze in shock. Standing next to her mother was not only the man from the photo but also Leah and her father. Mia's first instinct was to turn back, but her hurried entrance had already drawn everyone's attention. Her mother, Sarah, waved at her warmly, and with a forced smile, Mia walked over. "Come, sweetheart," Sarah said, pulling her into a hug. "Say hello to your uncle." The man beside her mother quickly interjected, "Uncle." Mia's chest tightened. He looked almost identical to her. Was he really about to deny being her father? Before Mia could react, Leah screamed from across the room, "Uncle Eric." Mia turned to see Leah running toward another man. Her confusion deepened as she noticed the man Leah was running to looked just like the one standing next to her mother. Two identical men. Mia stared, her disbelief growing. Leah's father, Eric, quickly ushered Leah and Mia away, giving Sarah and the other man introduced as Ethan some space to talk. As they walked, Leah began to explain. "I was on my way back to the dorm to get you, but then we bumped into your mom. She accidentally called my dad by his twin's name, Ethan." Mia's eyes widened. Leah continued, "At first, my dad corrected her. But when I looked at Ethan, it all clicked. If my father doesn't know your mom, then Ethan must be your dad." Mia shook her head, not wanting to accept the truth. "No, Leah. I'm happy with the life I have. My mom and sister are all I need. Besides, your uncle probably has his own family, and we wouldn't want to complicate his life." Leah placed a comforting hand on Mia's shoulder. "I get it," she said gently. "But Uncle Ethan has never been married, and he doesn't have any kids. He's a good man, Mia, and he deserves to know you." Mia remained quiet, the weight of Leah's words sinking in. They sat in silence for what felt like an eternity before Ethan and Sarah finally returned. "Hello, Mia," Ethan said warmly, his eyes kind as he smiled at her. Mia hesitated, looking to her mother for approval. Sarah gave a reassuring nod, her own eyes glistening with emotion. "Good afternoon," Mia greeted softly, her voice polite but unsure. Ethan crouched slightly to meet her gaze. "You're as beautiful as your mother described," he said gently. "I know this is a lot to take in, but I'd like to get to know you if you let me." Mia glanced at her mother again, seeking reassurance. Sarah stepped forward and took Mia's hand. "Sweetheart, I didn't tell you because I wanted to protect you. But Ethan is a good man, and he's been looking for you ever since he found out about you." Tears welled up in Mia's eyes as the weight of her mother's words sank in. She turned back to Ethan, studying his face, the face that looked so much like hers. "Okay," Mia finally said, her voice steady. "But we take it slow." Ethan smiled, a tear slipping down his cheek. "Slow is fine. As long as I get to be a part of your life." Leah grinned, nudging Mia playfully. "Told you he's not so bad." Mia couldn't help but smile back. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't such a bad thing after all. Chuka sat across from Kami, his warm smile making her feel at ease despite her initial hesitation. He cautiously asked about her studies, and she responded politely, occasionally glancing at her mother, Ochi, for reassurance. Just as the conversation began to flow more naturally, they were interrupted by Tiwa and her father, Mr. B. "Wonderful to see you here, Chuka." Mr. B greeted enthusiastically, shaking his hand with vigor. Chuka smiled warmly and introduced everyone. "This is Ochi, and that's my daughter," he said proudly, gesturing to Kami. Mr. B's eyes lit up as he turned to Cami. Well, young lady, you've got an amazing dad. Say thank you to him for me. He's my biggest client and has kept my business afloat. Everyone laughed, except Tiwa, who looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Cami couldn't help but notice how red Tiwa's face was. It was clear she could no longer torment Cami, knowing how important her father was to her family. Eventually, the group parted ways, and Cami returned home with her mother and Chuka. Later that evening, Ochi sat Cami down to explain everything. I met your dad during one of his business trips, Ochi began, her voice soft but steady. But shortly after he returned home, a riot broke out in our area. The local boys were upset about the new projects being developed, and they started setting houses on fire. It was so dangerous, Cami, I had to flee for my life. I lost my phone and everything I owned. I couldn't find a way to contact your father. Cami's heart ached as she listened. So, he didn't abandon us? She asked softly. Ochi shook her head fiercely. No, sweetheart. Your father is a good man. He went back to look for me, but I was nowhere to be found. When I realized I was pregnant, I tried to find him, but I couldn't. Eventually, I stopped searching and chose to focus on raising you. Cami hesitated before asking the question that had been swirling in her mind. So, are you going to marry him now? Ochi's eyes widened, startled by her daughter's bluntness. Cami. That's a little direct, don't you think? But Cami wasn't about to let it go. Come on, Mom. I saw the way you two looked at each other earlier. And you're even blushing. She teased, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. Ochi couldn't help but laugh. We'll see, she said with a smile. I guess time will tell. And time did tell. Chuka began visiting Ochi's house often, taking her on dates and making every effort to be part of Cami's life. At first, Cami was cautious, unsure if she could fully open her heart to this man she had just met. But over time, Chuka's sincerity and love won her over. Leah also became a regular visitor, often spending nights at Cami's home. The two girls grew closer than ever, their bond deepening with each passing day. One afternoon, during one of their many hangouts, Leah turned to Cami with a sly grin. Guess who's going to be the new it girl when school starts? Cami looked at her, confused. Who? Leah squealed. You, of course. Don't you realize how much your dad is worth? He's easily the richest parent at Pacific Halls. Cami shook her head, laughing. Leah, I don't care about that. I'm only there to study. Leah laughed, finishing her sentence for her. We know. You're there to study. But aren't you at least a little excited about how much your life is changing? Cami finally let herself smile, her excitement bubbling to the surface. Okay, fine. I won't lie, I'm so excited. She admitted, throwing her arms around Leah. The two girls hugged tightly, their laughter echoing through the room. Life was changing in ways Cami had never imagined. Her mother and father seemed destined to reunite, bringing their family together at last. She had found a sister in Leah, and her future now seemed brighter than ever. As she reflected on everything, Cami thought about how far they had come. Despite the challenges, the fear, and the uncertainty, everything had fallen into place in ways she couldn't have predicted. The words of Jeremiah 29:11 rang true in her heart, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Closing narration. Cami's journey is a testament to the power of love, resilience, and faith. Through the unexpected twists and turns of life, she found a family, hope, and a future brighter than she ever imagined. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share it with your loved ones. And remember, in life's toughest moments, Trust that things will work out in ways that exceed your expectations. Until next time, take care and goodbye.